Hello and welcome back to Beckler Guitars and Repair, and today we're checking out a pretty unique Les Paul. This is a 2008 Gibson Les Paul BFG, barely finished guitar, and this thing has some pretty unique specs. Let's check it out. So I've actually owned one of these back when they first came out in 2007, and I can't remember why I got rid of it, but I remember it being quite a nice guitar. And these things are getting harder to find now, and they're going for pretty high prices. So let's have a look. So yeah, very unique looking Les Paul. And this is, they've had a couple different versions of these throughout the years. This is one of the original runs that ran between 2007 and 2008. They came in 3 colors, which is this black, transparent ebony. I think they came in transparent red and transparent yellow. And then they were released a few years later in 2011, 2012 with a couple limited finishes. I think they also came in different configurations with like, one had like a tremolo system and a couple other iterations. And then again, they were released again in 2018, but those ones were quite a bit different than these original models. So yeah, these are called BFG, so barely finished guitars, and they were just made to look like really rough, like a barely finished guitar. They don't have binding around the body or the neck, and the top is kind of this half finished top. It's still a full-size maple carved top, but it's at kind of a different stage of being finished. Apparently this is what they look like before they do the final sanding. And it's got a rosewood fingerboard with no marks at all on it. There are still fret markers on the side. And then it's just got a very simple Gibson silkscreen logo. They actually didn't even come with truss covers, so someone has added a truss rod cover to here. And the control layout is pretty unique as well. So where you would normally have your 3-way switch, it's a 2-way switch. And this is actually a kill switch. Something Gibson very rarely puts on their guitars. We've got a P90 in the front, uncovered. It doesn't even have a plastic cover. It's basically just screwed into the body, into the cavity. We've got an uncovered zebra bobbin burst bucker 3 in the bridge position. Again, not even a pickup ring. It's just mounted directly into the open cavity there. And this is yeah, a Gibson P90. As far as controls go, we've got 2 volumes and a master tone. And this is your 3-way selector switch here. So we've got bridge, both in the middle, and then P90 in the neck. These originally came with like wooden knobs, but unfortunately someone has replaced these with these kind of plastic looking dark knobs. They match pretty well, but those wooden knobs are pretty cool. Let's have a quick look at the back. Again, these have this distressed kind of a satin finish. So it's a satin finish, but it's kind of, it looks distressed in certain areas. It definitely has a very unique look. And there's our serial number, dating this to 2008. And we've got Grover black machine heads on there. These came with clear pickup covers, or cavity covers rather. So you can see our wiring there. We've got the ceramic disc capacitors with the Gibson tone pots, or Gibson pots. And there's our 3-way switch. And then our kill switch cavity cover is also clear. So yeah, pretty interesting. And this guitar is all stock except for someone added black strap buttons or strap lock buttons to it and added a truss cover. It also looks like one of the strings has been swapped to like an acoustic string. So yeah, I just picked this up locally. I tried it out briefly before I brought it home, so I know everything works. But I want to go through everything, make sure it's set up well, do a restring, and just double check all the parts to make sure it's all original. Alright, let's get it on the bench. So weighing just over 7 pounds, 7 pounds, 4.2 ounces, so very light for a Les Paul. And that is 3.29 kilograms. So I checked the specs online, and this is a chambered body, so there's different weight relief styles for Gibson. I'll put them up on the screen here. So you can have solid, you can have chambered, you can have traditional, which is like the 9-hole weight relief, the modern. So this is the chambered style, so that accounts for why it's so light. And then let's check out our pickup ratings here. So in our bridge pickup, which is our Burstbucker 3, it's reading an 8.26. And then our P90 is reading a 7.94. And in the middle, it's a 4.05. And if you use the kill switch, you can cut everything off or put it back on. Alright, let's take a look at our pickups. So they're mounted directly into the body cavity. And just using these 2 screws. So, okay, yeah, this is the Burstbucker 3. You can read it right there. So it's dated to 2008, BB number 3. So this plate is just screwed into the body, and then the plate has these 2 little screw holes where the pickup screws mount to it. It's kind of an interesting way how they did that. And then our neck pickup is just a P90 here with 2 little screws, or springs rather, to help with the pickup height. And it's also got 2 little foam inserts to help with the tension for the pickup height. Yeah, it doesn't seem to be any marking in the pickup cavity routes, and they look nice and clean too. And here's a look at our tailpiece. It's full weight, unbranded, no casting mark. And this is our 2-pneumatic style bridge. It's branded PW. And these are the bridge posts and tailpiece posts. And here's a look at our cavity covers. They're just the same as normal, but they're clear. And our routes look nice and clean in the cavity. You can tell this is all original, using the Gibson pots, and all the soldering looks nice and clean. And this is where we normally see our 3-way switch, but instead it's the kill switch, and that all looks good. Let's have a quick look at the condition of this guitar. Alright, let's have a look at our headstock. Again, this guitar is distressed, so it's hard to tell what it came from the factory with and what was kind of done to it over the years, but let's have a look. So there's our distressed silkscreen logo for Gibson. It's the same, it just looks a little faded. And this is what it would look like from the factory. It didn't come with a truss cover, and they kind of painted these truss cover cavities yellow, which is kind of interesting. And our truss rod's in good shape. There's no thread showing, so lots of room for adjustability. And these came with bone nuts, which is nice. Gibson doesn't put bone on a lot of their models. And yeah, no fretwear on this guitar. And a really nice looking piece of rosewood for the fingerboard. And I checked the frets with the fret rocker. They're all nice and level, no issues. And there's no binding, but there's no fret sprout at all. Nice and smooth feeling. And here's our unfinished satin ebony distressed body. And yeah, you can see the top of the wood's kind of rough in some spots. There's some distressed wear, and the finish is all pretty even, but there's some spots where like the finish is worn away, and they all look a little bit different. One thing I've seen on almost all the BFG models is there's just a little line here by the neck. It's kind of hard to see unless you're very close, but yeah, it looks like kind of a route line. Maybe that's usually filled by finish at the factory, and then just a little bit uneven here. There's a bit of a hump. Again, it all seems to be part of the model. And our knobs have been replaced with these black plastic knobs. Actually, I thought they were ebony to start with, but I took them off and they are plastic. But they match the guitar pretty well. Let's have a look at the back. And a few little worn through areas in the back. Again, I'm not sure if that's factory. These little gouges probably are not factory. Any kind of deeper marks you can see in the finish are probably just wear over the years. But they fit the aesthetic quite nicely. And our strap buttons have been replaced with some locking ones, black. Again, they match the guitar pretty well. And the neck is pretty clear. I think there are a few small little marks you can see in the light. And it's a satin finish. Feels good. And nothing really too egregious. And a look at our headstock. Again, got some of that distressing around the edges. I'm not sure if that was factory or not. And this one dates it to 2008, the 59th day of the year. Yeah, overall our condition's nice. It's going to be no issues with playability, and again, this guitar is distressed, so any little marks on it that weren't done in factory kind of work for it. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and get this thing set up with a new set of strings, and then we'll check the setup. Alright, managed to get a nice setup on this guitar. So using my notch straight edge, we can check the relief in the neck. So the larger the gap, the more relief is in the neck. So that's like the looser the truss rod is. So you can see that there's a very little gap between the notch straight edge and the fingerboard. That tells me that the truss rod is set nice and tight, and there's very little relief in the neck, which is how I like to set my guitars. And as long as you've got good level frets, you're not going to have any buzz with that. Alright, checking the 3rd fret area. So you can see when I use the 3rd fret that the string is almost resting against that 1st fret. So that tells me that we've got nice action in this area, and we've got a very well cut nut. And then in the 12th fret, using the depth gauge here, I can see at the low E it's sitting at about a 1 millimeter. And at the high E, a 0.75 millimeter. So very nice low action. So this Les Paul is so light, it's in like SG territory, so I want to make sure it doesn't neck dive at all. So yeah, no neck dive at all. It stays right where you want it to, which is great for being this light. So I'm just going to quickly go through the entire fingerboard just to make sure there's no buzzing or fretting out anywhere. I like to speed up this part, but if you want to hear it in real time, just slow down your player to 25%. So yeah, a very nice low action with no buzzing or fretting out anywhere. Feels good. Yeah, it's got a really nice feeling neck, and again, there's no fret sprout at all. I really like satin Gibson necks. They feel great, super easy to smooth to play, and it doesn't feel sticky like sometimes nitro necks do. And the guitar is super resonant as well. It really rings out nicely acoustically. You can feel it vibrating as well. I don't know if that's due to like the chambered body or what, but yeah, it's very lively. All right, let's check the next specs and then we can plug it in and see how it sounds. Width of the nut is 1.69 inches or a 43.11 millimeters. And at the 12th fret, that's a 52.69 millimeters or a 2.07 inches. Neck depth at the 1st fret is a 0.819 inches or a 20.8 millimeters. And at the 12th fret, that's a 24.61 millimeters or a 0.969 inches. So I was a bit curious about this because this is supposed to be, or the BFG is supposed to be a 50s rounded neck, but it doesn't feel like a 50s rounded. It feels like slimmer. It feels more like a 60s. So I compared it to my SG, which has the 50s rounded, and again, so the BFG is reading a 0.81, and then the SG is like a 0.84. So yeah, the this 50s rounded is quite a bit bigger, as well as my Studio, which I just did in another video. The Studio is closer to the SG. It's a little bit bigger even than that. So I was thinking that this is a 60s neck on this BFG, which is pretty rare because I guess all of the other BFGs have 50s necks. So that's kind of interesting. Or it could be that this particular 50s neck was sanded down a little bit too much and now it's more in like 60s territory. So here's a look at the BFG's neck profile. And then when I compare that to the, it's a C for sure, but when I compare that to the 50s neck of the SG, this is the SG's neck, so it's a little bit more rounded on the top. So 50s and 60s neck profiles are pretty close, except the 50s are a little bit more rounded on the top like this, as you can see in this diagram. So when you compare the actual profile of the guitar and the neck thickness, I really do think that the BFG's got a 60s neck on it, which is pretty rare. So yeah, that's kind of cool. Of course, things don't come out of the factory perfect, so this could be a 50s neck that they just took a little bit too much material off of, but the measurements do make it seem like it's a 60s neck. So the neck profile specs not really matching all the other specs I've heard on the internet sent me down a bit of a rabbit hole, and I was looking at a couple Gibson forums and people were saying that there was an old PDF that showed that these guitars came with a 60 slim taper neck profile, but all the other people in the forums had never seen one. All the ones that they had used or had a 50s neck profile. So I was able to track down that PDF, and you can see it says right here, this PDF was published in 2006. It shows you that the neck profile for the BFG was supposed to be a slim taper neck. Now I've checked a bunch of different listings, and all the other ones have been 50s. Apparently they did make a few of these 60s tapers necks, but apparently they're hard to find. So yeah, that's pretty interesting. All right, I'm plugged into my custom-made clone of like the early Fender Champ amps. It's just got the one volume / gain knob, so it's a very transparent amp. You can hear how the guitar sounds without any other EQ on there. I'm going to go ahead and do it clean in each position, and then with a little bit of overdrive. Yeah, that kill switch is cool. So yeah, it sounds great clean. Sounds great in every position. I really like the P90. I really like the Burstbucker 3. It really is cool in the middle position because you kind of get the best of both worlds. But yeah, sounds great. I'm going to go ahead and try it with a little bit of overdrive now. Alright, so final thoughts on the 2008 Gibson Les Paul BFG in transparent ebony. Really cool guitar. I did own one way back when, and I remember really liking it, and yeah, it's easy to see why. This guitar in particular is super light. I mean, 7 pounds for a Les Paul is awesome. So yeah, very comfortable to play. It's also very nice and resonant. I think maybe that's due to the chambered body, but you can really hear it like ring out acoustically, and the whole thing just kind of vibrates. I think the satin finish might have something to do with that too. I mean, the thinner the finish, usually it lets the guitar, you know, vibrate and be very resonant. So that's great. The playability is there. Like, this guitar's in really good shape. There's no fret wear at all, and I actually got the action super nice and low, so it's super easy to play, super easy to bend, and it sounds great as well. The kill switch, it's cool. You don't really see a kill switch that often on Gibson guitars. Not something that I would utilize very often, but it's kind of a neat idea. I mean, you've got all the functionality of a regular Les Paul anyway, because we've got the master tone knob and the 2 volumes, and the 3-way pickup selector is down here. And I didn't hate having the selector switch down here. It kind of just a little bit easier to get to rather than the more traditional position here. I found this comfortable. I guess it's about the same distance, but just for me, I found that to be very convenient. And this thing just looks really, really cool. It's got that like stripped down, you know, rock and roll junkyard kind of look, which I really like. It's distressed. Also, I think this would look really, really cool on stage, especially if you were in like a rock or a blues band, even metal, I guess. And it's a shame that the wooden knobs got replaced, because those were pretty cool. However, these ones match the aesthetic pretty well. And it's just got nice hardware and nice specs. The Burst Bucker 3 with the P90 combination was great. You got your black hardware, your Grover black tuners. The guitar stayed in tune very well. The bone nut is nice. You don't see that in Gibson too often. And the back clear cavity covers are kind of neat as well. Kind of adds to that distressed, kind of barely finished look. And just overall, I was really impressed with the guitar, just the way it felt and sounded and played. If you're interested in this one, I'm going to have it up for sale on the Reverb page, so check the description for that. Other than that, thank you for tuning into Beckler Guitars and Repair, and I'll have more for you really soon. Thanks a lot.